being a Sunset Strip hairband and living in a house together. So, in my interview with my former drummer, Roger Carter, who's had quite a career in the music business and played with a lot of big names, he asked me, he said, so how soon after meeting us did you move into the band house, the Shock House? 2 weeks after joining the band, boom, we're on the cover of Rock City News. 2 weeks. I told Roger it might have been a month, but it might have only been 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before I moved into the band house. And man, what a house of horrors it was. I've talked about the backyard filled with, broken down cars and trash and cans and filth, and just the singer had used it as his dumping ground. He would pee, but he'd go in the backyard and just pee because he didn't have a bath. He was living in the garage and didn't have his own bathroom. My room was a room next to the garage, but it was attached to the house, but no entry from inside. So I had a lock on my door. That was probably the best thing about it, is I could put my stuff in there and lock it, because man, there was a good chance if you left anything out in the living room, it would be gone. We had a living room that basically had nothing in it but a couple of old couches, and I don't even think we kept a TV in there, because if we, the door was often kicked open or just left open by whoever, would leave, after they got up in the morning or early evening and exited somebody's room. It would leave the front door open. And you never know who would just show up. People from the past, old girlfriends, friends, people that were, slept on the couch or slept on the floor, or, it was like a roach motel of some sort. And, it was squalor. It was squalor. It was rough. It was very rough. But I want to tell a story about just one evening at the Shock House. Now, when I lived in Hollywood, I had lived in a nice apartment with a couple great musicians, Lance Morrison and Keith Howland. Talked about them on my channel. Lance, has had a great career playing bass, and Keith Howland was with Chicago for 28 years, and those guys went on to do a lot. And I chose the other path. I wanted to become a rock star. So I joined a Sunset Strip band, and that led me out of Hollywood eventually, because they had a house in the Valley. Now, the Valley was never really considered like a hip place to live. In fact, it was the opposite of that. It was generally kind of a sleepy place where, houses very close to each other were put, and, it was some families, a lot of older people. It wasn't, wasn't as chaotic as Hollywood. And in that regard, I liked it. I liked being in a neighborhood as opposed to, being somewhere where I really had to walk out of my front door and be ready to head on a swivel and ready to throw down at any moment. But, so I'm living in the Shock House, right? And part of the reason why I moved there was my roommates were all moving out, getting their own places. And, the lease was ending, and it was like everybody's turn to kind of fly out of the Hollywood nest and figure out, where they would go next. So the band that I had been playing with, the guitar player moved out of his room, and that room became available. And they said, "Hey man, if you want to move in here, the rent's, $225 or $250 or whatever," which was about half of what I was paying in Hollywood. And I thought, man, this is going to be kind of rough, but this is my best option right now. I still had my job working at the pawn shop. So I would commute. All of a sudden, I had this longer commute across the hill to get to work. And then I had band practice, 4 or 5 nights a week. I was burning the candle at both ends. And when I was in Hollywood, I had a group of guys across the hall that I befriended, Johnny and Mike, and they had a roommate named Steven, and they had some different roommates, over that course. But, they became good buddies, guys you would go out drinking with and jam with and, have fun. And so their lease was ending as well, Johnny and Mike. And there was a room at the Shock House that was available. It was a small room, very small room. But, the idea of only paying, $100 or $200 a month or whatever, I think it might have even only been $150 for that room. And I said, "Hey guys, I know it's a small room, but if you guys, need a place to stay, you've got this room here in the Shock House and it's $150 a month. And, you guys are welcome to put your little cots in here and, join the club," right? So, so we're all coming out of this nice apartment, in Hollywood with a pool and, so they move out to the Shock House and I help them get, their stuff in. And I think at that time our singer was, I don't remember if he was gone or what, but I think we maybe put some of the stuff in the garage or one of the guys' stuff in the garage. And so they move into the house. Well, at the time, there were 2 girls living there was this larger middle room that had kind of a bathroom kind of attached to it. And so these girls were living in that room. And I don't know if they were girlfriends or what. It seemed like maybe they were. I'm not sure. And, the Shock House was this, they're always kind of like transient type people coming and going. And friends of the band from the past or, ex-girlfriends or, whatever. It was always somebody showing up. So about the same time that Mike and Johnny move into the Shock House, this guy, I think they called him Psycho. I don't remember. It was some kind of name like that. It was like Psycho or Crazy or something. And that's the only name that I knew him as was, "Hey, this is Psycho. And he's going to be crashing with us for a little while." So I don't know if this was our bass player's jail buddy that had gotten out of jail, but he had gotten out of jail. And now he was like blonde haired, kind of shoulder length hair. And he had a beard. He had like a beard and kind of a stocky built guy. Definitely a guy you wouldn't want to mess with, right? And with a name like Psycho, yeah, it's just like, okay, all right, well, here's Psycho. "Hey, Psycho, nice to meet you." And once again, you're thankful for having your room with a lock on the door, right? So Mike and Johnny move into the house. They get there. They had, I think, each had a twin bed. And one got one corner and one got the other corner. And they kind of put a dresser in there so they could put their clothes in there. And they're in the house and, everything's hunky-dory. And I think they took out a celebratory bong. And, back then everybody, it was dirt weed. It was just the most brown, compressed like stuff that came straight from Mexico. And I think in their room, they took a few hits off the bong and set the bong on the dresser and, filled the room with smoke. And then I said, hey man, welcome to the neighborhood. I said, hey, you guys want to go get something to eat? He's like, yeah, man. So I don't remember. I don't know if we were going to get something to eat or just going. No, actually, we were going to get beer. We're going to get some beer, right? 12-pack of beer. So this is getting into early evening, right? Like it's probably still light out when we left, but by the time we got back, it was starting to get dark. And we go and get the beer. And, I think one guy was riding in the tailgate, in the back of my truck. I had a top on my truck, and the other guy was, or maybe we were all squeezed into the front seat. I don't remember. But we get back to the house, and we start rolling up close to the house, and we see all these cop cars. I'm talking like 3 or 4 cop cars. The house is surrounded. And I'm like, dude. And they're like, don't look. And we glance over and we see everyone from the house all out on the front stoop, all handcuffed. And all these cops out there, and they're coming in and out of the house, and their psycho is handcuffed. And the 2 girls that shared the room, they're all handcuffed. And Greg, the guy whose brother owned the house and, was the bass player in shock, he's handcuffed. They're all sitting on the stoop, and they're all like this. And we drive by, and we're like, dude. And I'm just like, keep going, don't stop. So we roll right on past. And they're like, oh, what do we do? And the 2 guys are like, we left our stuff out. We left our, pot out. What do we do? I said, man, all we could think to do was drive to the band practice unit, which we didn't have a key to, but there was a parking lot there, and we knew, we felt like that was a safe place where we could park. And we're freaking out. We are freaking out. Like, dude, they were all handcuffed. And, no telling what was in that house, right? No telling what each person had in their room. And why the cops were there, we had no idea. But we're just like, we knew this is not good, bro. This is dude. And it's like, 1,000 dudes are coming out. Everyone's going, dude. And so we get to where, we had rehearsed. It was like these warehouses. We're in Van Nuys. That's where the house was, in Van Nuys, man. And it was kind of a semi-rough area, right? It had its good streets and its bad streets. This band rehearsal place was in this warehouse area, and we had like a warehouse that had been converted into a rehearsal room. So what do we do? And so we get in the back of my truck in the covered top, the tail, what do they call it? The bed of the truck. And we got the top. We all get in there, and we're all scrunched down, like hiding. We're hiding because we're sure that the cops, the next stop is, they're going to come looking for us or whatever. And we're just, oh man, we are freaked out. We are completely, and we're, dude, what do we do? And we must have hid in the back of that truck for, I don't know, a half hour, an hour. And finally we're like, what do we do? And we're like, well, we'll call the hotline. Now, back then, bands had hotlines on their flyers. How do you think girls would call the band? The hotline would ring, 24 hours. And if you felt like it, you'd pick it up and go, hello. And it'd either be, Usually be some fan. It could be fans from, Wisconsin or, Chicago or whatever that saw your ad or got a flyer, or it could be some people, some girls wanting to party. I mean, it was literally like the party line. And you'd have, that's how people would find you if they lost contact with you and then they saw you on a poster somewhere. I had an old girlfriend who saw me in a flyer and or on the cover of that magazine that I just showed, and that's how she tracked me down to where I was, where my whereabouts was. But we're in this back of this truck and we're waiting. We're waiting and waiting. What do we do? What do we do? We got the bright idea to call the hotline. Let's call the hotline and see if they answer. Let's see if they let anybody free. And so we call the hotline, and a policeman answers. Hello, detective, whatever. And we're like, is Greg there? And the cop says, hey, Greg. And Greg picks up the phone. Yeah, man, Psycho pulled a knife in the house on the girls. And the girls called the police. So they had gone in the house, the police had come and basically, cuffed up everyone and, went through the house and they saw what was going on in the house. But essentially they were there to get Psycho, and Psycho had just gotten out of jail and was, hey man, can I crash on the couch at the Shock House? And within a few hours, maybe it was a day of him being there, all of a sudden, calamity erupts. He pulls a knife. The girls call the cops, and he's going back to jail. So the cops didn't care about my buddy's little piddly little stash in their room and the stale air of bong smoke. They didn't care about anything else. But Psycho went back to jail. And so we waited a little bit, but we slowly made our way back to the house, and the cops were, leaving. The last cop car was pulling off, and we're just like, whew. And that was just another day at the band house.